Hello there and welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be talking about the new FCC info that's been published today for the upcoming DJI Avata drone, but also the DJI Goggles 2 and the O3 Air unit. Now, just before I jump into that, if you're wondering why I sound a bit different, that is because unfortunately I have human malware. I haven't been particularly well, but don't worry, I'm probably not going to die by the time I finish this video. So hopefully by the end, you should have actually learned something. Anyway, let's jump into it and take a look at what's actually going on first of all. Now, we've had these three FCC filings released. We have a new FCC filing for DJI Goggles 2, a new filing for the O3 Air unit, and the Avata drone. Now, if you don't know what the Avata drone is, we believe it is going to be this thing here. This image isn't actually taken from the FCC filings. This is one of the ones that's been sort of banded around the internet. However, what's really interesting about it is that it looks to be sort of a modular design with this battery on the back and this air unit located down here with camera. And there is a belief that this air unit in this is the same air unit we're going to see available as well. There is then also in the FCC filings this, which is the FCC label on the bottom. That doesn't give us a lot of info, but it does tell us that it's going to be a 4S battery based on the nominal voltage that we've got here. Something I will add as well on this image before I go any further is this drone is a lot deeper than it looks. I've actually seen another image from a side which gives some perspective, and it's actually quite tall. Whilst this does look quite squashed down, I think you're going to find this thing could be like that high when it comes into the real world. Now, before I jump into the spec for the drone, we're going to take a look at the goggles and air unit first, because that very much relates to the drone, and if I cover that first, I can then come back to the drone and explain some of the things that I believe around that as well. So we have what is believed to be the new DJI Goggles 2. So that's not FPV Goggles, not FPV version 2, simply DJI Goggles 2. From the test reports, we know that they support dual band, both 2.4 and 5.8 gigs in the SDR. Let me just get down to that section here. Here we go. So they support 2.4 gigs and 5 gigs in the SDR modes, which will be Ocusync. So that supports frequency bandwidths of 1.4, 3, 10, 20, and 40 megahertz. So that is the main Ocusync bandwidths that we have. For instance, the 1.4 is usually the RC bandwidth, and then everything above that, 3, 10, 20, and 40 is used for general Ocusync. We also know, though, that these goggles are also having support for both Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. So alongside the main SDR, we have traditional Wi-Fi on 5 gigs, and we have Bluetooth in there as well, which means they're going to offer some additional capabilities that we've not seen before. Another interesting take on the goggles is that they have dual built-in antennas for the SDR. If we jump up to that section here, you can see it supports 1 transmit and 4 receive in SISO, single in, single out mode, or 2 transmit and 4 receive in, multi-out mode, like the current goggles. And you can see that it says 2 integral antennas and 2 external antennas. So that leads us to think, based on all of the info we've had in the past, that there will be 2 antennas built in. And if we go further down into the filings, they actually say that the built-in antennas are receive only, and the 2 external ones can be used for transmit. Let me just find where it says that. It's usually down here. It's just below this section here. Here we go. According to the manufacturer, the EUT has 1 internal antenna for 5.2 and 5.8 gigs Wi-Fi, has 2 external antennas and 2 internal antennas, brackets receive only, for the 5.8 SDR, which is the Ocusync. The max uncorrelated antenna gain is 2 dB for the Wi-Fi and 3 dB for the 5.8 and 3 dB for the 5.8 SDR. So the big difference with these goggles looks to be they've added Bluetooth, they've added Wi-Fi, and 2 of the antennas are built in. We can then see a couple of other bits of specifications. We've got the model numbers located up here as well, and there's some other specs for the radio system, but the most important stuff is that we understand that there's 2 built-in antennas, 2 externals. It supports 2.4 and 5 gig SDR, as well as the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. This is the label that is going to be shown in the goggles for the FCC filing. And there's a little hint in here of something that is going to be on these goggles, and that is that they're going to have a touchpad. And the reason we know this is it says at the bottom of this part, users are able to access the information in no more than 3 steps in the device menu. The actual steps are swipe right on the touchpad to enter the menu, select settings, about, and compliance info. So this little bit here is actually giving us a hint that there is also going to be a touchpad on the goggles, probably something similar to what we had on the white FPV goggles or the Goggles RE from DJI. We don't know how big these are. We've seen no images, but it's clear there's been a few other tweaks. Next, we have the big one, and this is the new O3 air unit, and we actually have a bottom picture of this one. You can see it shows the O3 air unit. It gives us the model number, which is QFP2AS, and it has all the regulatory information located on the bottom, and then we can see holes located on the side with this strange cut-in located here. Not sure why that's there, but it is. Now, we don't have any reference for this design, but if that was 30 by 30, it would give us an idea, potentially. Could be 25 by 25, could be 20 by 20. I suspect it's none of them, and I suspect it's something DJI have created, but it might be 30 by 30, but it gives you an idea. But what we don't get from this is the height. Now, again, we can learn a lot from the FCC filings, and there is quite a bit in here that we've come to understand. First of all, these units, this air unit, does not have 5.8 and 2.4 gigs SDR. If we jump up to the main section, it actually does support 2.4 gigs input, but only on receive. It actually only supports video dual band via 5 gigs. So if we look under the spec, it supports 7.4 to 26 volts. So we got 2 to 6S. Support radio frequency mode 1 is 2.4 gigs SDR receiver only. And then 5 gigs SDR operating in the full bandwidth, 1.4, 10, 20, and 40. Whereas the 2.4 receive only in 1.4 megs. So this air unit is not dual band in the sense of it's not going to allow you to select between 2.4 and 5 gigs. Now, as for why does it allow to receive on 2.4 but nothing else, my opinion, the reason for that is for remote controller support. It is probably the case that this new drone and air unit will be compatible with either the original FPV drone remote, because that is dual band, or one of the other remotes from DJI, because they haven't actually published an FCC filing for a new remote controller. So they're either using one of the existing remotes or they're going to do that later. But my opinion is the support for 2.4 is for the remote control side of things, and that's why it's limited to 1.4 megs bandwidth, because that is the carrier size for DJI's remote control signals. Another real interesting thing on this air unit, when you dig into the test results, if I scroll down, they talk a little bit about the antennas. First of all, up here, it says it has a USB Type-C port for PC communication, but not supporting power supply. But if we go down here below this section, they say something interesting about the antennas. According to the manufacturer, declared the EUT, which is the device, has integral antennas with a max uncorrelated gain of 1.5 dBi, permanent attachment, and no consideration of replacement. So the MMCX connectors are gone, and this air unit will have permanent built-in antennas, dual antennas. Now, we don't know what permanent means. There is requirements in the laws now for antennas not to be able to be swapped. You've seen it with TBS putting that little cover on the top of their units as well to stop people changing them. So the likelihood is DJI have had to actually do this to prevent users swapping the antennas, but that doesn't mean we're not going to see something like a little liftable panel where there might be UFL connections underneath where you can swap the antennas. From an official regulatory point of view, though, the antennas are classed as permanent, and you can see, therefore, the UET is considered sufficient to comply with provision, which means the fixed antennas is sufficient to comply with the regulations as it's required. Now, that is the big interesting takes that we've got from the goggles and air unit. This is the point where I want to swing back to the drone, because this all very much aligns with the drone as well, because when we look at the specification of the drone, things are very much the same. Again, it supports 2.4 gigs SDR receive only on 1.4 megs bandwidth, same as the Airunit. So again, that will be remote control receive. Supports 5.8 gigs SDR. It has GPS, DBS, and Galileo receiver for the satellite, and it has ADS-B receiver in for AirSense as well. And again, we can see the frequencies that it supports. So it is very much the same setup on the Avata drone as it is the Airunit itself. Now, as I've already mentioned, we don't have any images of this equipment right now. That is the first we have seen of this Airunit. We now know it is going to exist. It is only officially single band from a video point of view. It is what they're calling O3, so that means technically it could be compatible with the version 2 goggles if DJI was to upgrade the firmware, because basically the Ocusync FPV system, the current one we have, the FPV system, whether it be the version 1 or 2, is all using the same chipset. There's no difference. It's all based on the P1, and the chances are this will be based on the P1 as well, because DJI's newest drones are still using the P1 as well. So it is very possible we will see an update for the V2 goggles to actually support this Airunit as well, but we don't know if that will happen. In fact, as far as I can see right now, technically, there is no reason the V1s couldn't be updated to support this. Whether that will happen or not is another question. What we don't know, though, is what else is going on here. We don't know what the features are going to be, what the specification is. There have been leaks that tell us this is going to be a sort of combined Airunit and Action 2 camera in one. So it's going to have that proper chipset in for video recording, is probably going to support much higher frame rates. But what we don't know then is what cost that's going to come at, literally, and I mean actual monetary cost, because if you're having an Airunit with a combined high-end camera, that's going to cost money, and what size restrictions and things like that come with it. We don't know what cameras it's going to use. We don't know, is it even going to be compatible with new cameras on the market, old cameras for this system? Is the Vista going to be compatible? We simply don't know. What we do know, though, is the Avata is coming. The O3 Airunit is coming, as is the Goggles 2. It remains to be seen what that will actually mean for us as FPV and how much of a product this is going to be for us. I have some concerns, I'll be honest. I think it could be a push more into the mainstream, because if we do have a product that combines an action camera and an Airunit in one, not only is that going to be expensive, it's going to be difficult to move that to different frames. Are you going to bolt this on the top? Are you going to have multiples of these if they cost $250, $300 each? Are you going to be buying 4 or 5 of these? There's a lot of unknown questions at this time. What we now do know, though, is that it isn't dual band. It is basically single band. It is going to probably have support for one of the existing remotes, or they will release a new remote later via that 2.4 gig mode. And we know it's got fixed antennas on the Airunit and 2 fixed antennas on the goggles as well. Anyway, that's it from me. I thought I would share with you the information as I've seen it. If you have found this interesting, please do consider hitting the subscribe button if you're not a subscriber already. If you're new here, please do check out the links to my Patreon as well as Buy Me a Coffee. It is only by you guys using them am I able to keep making content like this. Hopefully, I will be buying this system to talk about when it comes out and share with you my thoughts on it, just like we've been doing with the Avatar system, just like we've been doing with HD0. So if you do want to see them, please do make sure you are subscribed. Anyway, that's it from me. Stay safe. I'll speak to you soon.